Community Unit School District 308 Board of Education meeting servicing the communities of Aurora, Joliet, Montgomery, Oswego, Plainfield, and Yorkville. Can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Baumann. Here. Mr. Lightfoot.
Present.
Mr. McDowell.
Here.
Mr. O'Neill. Mrs. Paul.
Here.
Mrs. Swanson. Here. Mr. Walsh.
Here. Pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
2.1, okay. I understand that there is no public comment tonight, so we will move right on to comments and reports. I just wanted to remind the public and the board that we have our town hall Q&A with the Board of Ed for November 17th in the auditorium here at Oswego East at 7 o'clock. It's a Monday on an off week of board meetings. So we look forward to that and look forward to the opportunity. Yes. It has always been November 17th. 22nd. Yep. It's okay. Thank you for the clarification. So we'll still have it on the 17th. So that's all I have. I know we have other board members that may have comments. I'll open it to the floor. Okay.
What did I do?
I knew we.
I always do, Bill. Oh, and we went to Boulder Hill. I did see Dr. Went there, and some others. At the Boulder Hill, they donated a tree. We should send a quick thank you out to, I think it was Acres Group, who donated the tree in memoriam for Miss Simpson, who 2 of my children had, which was fantastic. And then we had a teaching and learning committee meeting. You want me to do it, or you got this?
Is there any other comments before we move into board comment, board reports?
Yes. So Saturday evening, myself and board member Paul, along with Dr. Went and Mrs. Went, attended the Those Who Excel banquet in beautiful Normal, Illinois. And as the board remembers, we met with 2 meetings ago all of the individuals in the district that received various awards, and those were presented Saturday night as well. We got to see the 12 individuals that were selected from across the state for Illinois Teacher of the Year, and of course one of our own, Heather Kraus, was there representing very well Oswego 308, and it was a nice night. Unfortunately, Heather didn't win, but nomination is a prize unto itself, I'm sure. And I'm looking forward to more 308 teachers being nominated and up on that stage in future years. So it was a good event and very well attended. And it was also, I took away a little bit of networking time. We sat at a table with a smaller district from downstate, and interesting to kind of compare and contrast the issues that district has compared to districts of our size.
Thank you. There's no other comments. We can move into board committee reports. We'll do teaching and learning first. We'll switch.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
First of all, we decided that an hour was not long enough at the end of our meeting. Let's see. We had Dr. Brenda Dixon come in for an update on the data warehouse. In her report, I forgot to write it down. She so far has done 99 different variables for over 17,000 students. Validated, verified, and updated. Also 9 different variables for ELL. I think that squeezed into the first part, though. I didn't get to clarify. It was separate? And our committee would like to keep an eye on student achievement. We'd like the focus to be, right now it's a administrative tool, and our committee was pretty adamant about how this helps the rubber meet the road in the classroom and how to help teachers make good decisions using data, and being able to access some of this information and some other information that we all just kind of felt like the more information you had, the better it was. So somewhere down the road, we just wanted to make sure that we were keeping our big picture on student achievement.
Thank you.
Mike?
You summed it up nicely.
And we'll move on to Policy Committee.
Policy Committee met last Monday evening. We reviewed we're starting into Section 7, Part 1 of Section 7, which is students. Plus, we decided to table 6:185, which is the remote education. It's titled Remote Education Online Learning, but we were told at the meeting it should not be online learning should not be included in that. It should just be remote education. And it's tabled because Teaching and Learning is reviewing that right now. So we got through 710 through 780, and then there were three other policies, 7140, 7190, and 192, that we also moved ahead due to some things that have come up. We needed to review those policies. So those are the policies that will be coming to the board.
The policy that you tabled, is that scheduled for T&L anytime soon, or how's that?
I'm hoping all of 6 is, because we're still waiting on all of 6.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about making that meeting a little longer and just do policy, just one.
New policy night.
Yeah, we'd like to get those sent out ahead of time, and
We're going to talk about talking about it.
We're going to talk about talking about it. So maybe the December meeting sounds like it may come back to policy.
That's a good plan.
Thanks for that commitment, Mike. Okay, we have nothing else. 4.1, consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 4.1 minutes from the October 14th, 2014 regular board meeting, open and closed sessions.
Second.
Mr. Baumann?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Aye.
Mrs. Paul?
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill? Mr. Lightfoot?
Aye.
Mrs. Swanson?
Aye.
Mr. Walsh?
Aye, motion carries 7-0. Move on to information only. 5.1 is our district strategic plan. Dr. Went.
The second board meeting of the month is geared more towards a work session, so I thank the school board for the opportunity to, tonight during this work session time, make the strategic 2020 plan our priority for presentation and discussion. You should have 3 documents in front of you or at your space. One of them is a hard copy of what you received earlier last week, the strategic 2020 plan. There are 2 individual sheets at your place. One is a list of the task force, the names of the strategic planning task force I'll refer to momentarily, and the other is a governance and management partnership that we'll reference as well. I'll take a few minutes, and then Dr. Sanders and Mr. Cheeseborough, if you could come on up to the table at this time, and then we'll also have a couple members of our committee address the board tonight. This is an exciting time. We're a few months behind the curve. We had to set aside this work this past summer for personal and other reasons, but we're happy that we were able to begin a process well over a year ago to update a plan that, by all accounts, ended in 2012. I always like to take the opportunity to extend my congratulations to former Superintendent Dr. David Balow and the Board of Education at the time, who in about 2006 gathered a group of people in the district and spent an enormous amount of time and created an outstanding plan that provided a roadmap and a direction for the district in the years including 2007, 8, up through and including 2011 and 12. It was a very good work, and there was an enormous amount of effort not only placed in the plan, but I think it behooves all of us to understand that work that has been completed since 2007 is because of that plan. one of the programs in our district that most people recognize when you walk into many of our schools, if not all, came from the good people that worked on that particular plan, and that was a program called Character Counts. It's evidence that good programming can be birthed through a strategic plan, but it's even more important that what we place in a strategic plan can outlive individual tenure in a district. That's very important, and so when you take that philosophy and that foundation and you place it in front of people, it is truly a document that's larger than superintendents, larger than any staff member, any board, anyone serving in the capacity of a member of a strategic plan. One would hope that, Lord willing, some of us would be still around and doing what we're doing, including in this district in 2020. But if we're not, one would hope to aspire to be able to find this plan in place. And although it may be tweaked along the way, the philosophy, the foundation, and the great work that this plan calls for will have come to fruition up into and including the year 2020. Having said that, I would call the board's attention to the single sheet, the Strategic Planning Task Force. We gathered between 35 and 40 individuals. They're listed by name and by position or by building that they might represent. Includes citizens and parents, people who are an officer of a parent organization. And if they were not able to attend meetings, they certainly were able to communicate their desires via email, which occurred on a regular basis. We had a good group of individuals who committed time, and I know you as board members will recognize many, if not most, of the names on this sheet, on this Excel spreadsheet. And so at your leisure, you have an opportunity to see these individuals. Please extend your personal thanks to them for serving in the capacity of a member of the District Strategic Planning Task Force. This is not easy work. It's not limited to one area. It's truly about dreaming and having a vision of not just what's possible in the 2014-15 school year, which, as we've gone through our priorities, is difficult enough. But when you launch into what arguably could be 4, 5, 6 years down the road, it's a challenge. And I can share with you tonight that true to District 308, we had our spirited conversations externally and internally, meeting with the committee and also with our administrative team and the work that is compiled behind specifically pages 4 and 5. We challenged one another. We asked great questions. I've been a part of this in 4 separate school systems, and I've never had a group of people that respected one another and were willing to throw out some language issues, everything down to semicolons and colons and words and acronyms, and it was received, and I hope will be implemented with the spirit of this is a great plan and it can improve the district. So we will have 2 members of the task force come up to the table later in the hour to express to the board their feelings. They're representing the task force, and we'll let those 2 folks be introduced and speak at a later time. Having said that, similar to what we have said, I appreciate Dennis Cheeseborough being a facilitator. I think that you could ask any member of the strategic task force, and I would encourage you to do that. This is time and dollars well spent. Dennis has an expertise that he brings. We bring him into districts to focus on long-range planning. This is his expertise. He does it for a living with public and private entities, schools, faith-based organizations, and so he has the knack. He can listen to people talk for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 25 minutes, and go to the board and write it down in 1 sentence, and it says exactly what we wanted it to say. I always appreciate you, Dennis, being in our district, and we have full confidence in you working with not only our parents and citizens, but also our staff. And so the first several pages, Dennis will refer to along with the single attached document that outlines management and governance practices. For the sake of the public and for the board, page 4 and 5 is where we're going to ask the Board of Education to spend their governance time. I'm very pleased that, I tell you, wordsmithing is not easy. If you think it's easy to take a mission statement and whittle it down to 8, 10, 12, 14 words, I've seen mission statements that are three paragraphs, and I don't agree with that assessment. Mission statement should be clear, it should be concise, it should be something that we can memorize, and that's what you find in print, in reading in partnership with our families and communities. District 308 will educate all students to reach their highest potential. The slogan below, world-class schools and caring communities, layman's terms, my terminology, slogans, mantras, wording that you might see it from websites to writing utensils to coffee mugs, depending on your business. You see these types of mantras. You want people to grab a hold of something that shoots for a vision. Let there be no mistake, we're not world-class today. That's what the plan's for. If we want to define world-class, I've been asked that from Ask Dr. Went's column to genuinely interested people in what it is that we mean by world-class. If the strategic plan does not define world-class, we either need to drop the words world-class or we need to send the strategic plan back to and have more work done on it. World-class is about, it's a goal. It's becoming world-class. I'm convinced that the plan addresses topics and issues that can be found, and now I can honestly say this tonight, can be found in no other school district in the state of Illinois. Now, granted, the state board with online learning jumped the gun on us because of timing. Obviously, we would have wanted to have had this in front of the board a couple months ago, and we would at that time been talking about the possibility of the state board agreeing with our assessment or our waivers that in this plan online learning becomes a part of a natural child's experience at the high school level. Well, again, this was delayed. We moved forward with the state board, but again, we're doing to do things with this plan, through this plan, that no other school district in the state's doing. It'll cause challenges. It'll cause people to question. There'll be a strong need to communicate internally and externally, but it's a goal. It's taking risk. It's not holding people accountable for being perfect, but it is holding people accountable for what we agree should be a part of District 308. It gives us permission to say no. And for every individual I run into, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, someone out here within the next 24, 48 hours would prefer that we spend more time on A and B and C and not as much time on F and G and H. That's why we have a plan. It focuses our work. It focuses our attention. And for each one that Dr. Sanders will mention tonight, all of us agree that there are layers upon layers that simply cannot come to fruition over the next 6, 9, or 12 months. I encourage the board to know that in most school systems that go through this, and my experience has been that the mission statement is something that's put in print and placed throughout our district. It's something that guides our work, as will the core values, and I appreciate you taking the time to have looked those over. Vision 2020 and the key district strategies are listed, and then of course on page 5 are some very strong statements. It takes a lot of effort to get a faculty and administration and all employees within the organization to believe the first statement, let alone all of the following statements. It costs no money to believe all students can and will learn at high levels. It doesn't cost a dime. And so there are costs built in, but I think you'll hear tonight that part of our resources are tied up in other areas that need to be considered, freed up, so that we put our dollar behind our direction. And that is what the strategic plan allows us to do. If it's not in here, we should question it as to whether or not it should be in the district. We should question whether or not we should allocate dollars to it. But if it is here, and it's a part of the fabric of 308, then it should be something that, one, we recognize is going to be a multi-year phased-in approach. It's not going to happen overnight. There will need to be budgets set aside to ensure it occurs. No one wants to hear in 2017 that we had a nice idea in the 2020 plan, and nothing has occurred. No one wants to hear that. If we try it and it doesn't work or it fails for some reason, we owe it to one another to acknowledge that it did fail and we need to examine why. And that's reasonable and fair. I want to share with the board, and I'm sure others will tonight, that we met for a few hours this morning with those members of the planning task force, and I can share with you that page 4 and 5 will get adjusted because this is a draft. We're probably about, in my percentage, we're probably about 85% there, maybe 90. We come up with 12 questions that we needed to respond to because the task force asked those questions. And then we had a dozen or so comments that needed to be honed in and addressed. We expect the Board of Education to have questions that we need to respond to, and we also expect the board tonight and then over the next few weeks, if not month, to have comments. Maybe there's a better word. Maybe there's a word that's not defined well. The last thing we would want is to put out language and then have 100 emails from people wondering what it is we mean. So we need to be clear. We've done great work, but every once in a while you have to stop writing the essay and give it to the editors, and then take a breath and let people move forward. The last thing I want to comment on, and that will be what Dr. Sanders begins to review, are the pages that begin on page 6 and move through the document. There's 3 sections. There are the district's vision cards laying out this is administration work. This is not the strategic task force. Although we've asked the task force to review and to comment, we had many of the comments through this morning, and we anticipate more coming in later after today. These are our measures. These are the weights that we'll apply to it that will be explained tonight. And then as you move into the 3-year operational plan, that will be explained, and Dennis can provide an overview of it. And then, of course, the department improvement plans. We did not bring on purpose every department's improvement plan. We didn't do that. We brought teaching and learning, and we wanted to show the board an example of what that would look like. We have other departments that are at different levels. The teaching and learning department, I think, did a nice job of laying out for you what an internal department document would look like. This is not intended to be something that we place in the public. We can refer to it. It is a document that's an internal framework or a roadmap or a pathway that guides our work. It'll guide our meetings. It'll guide our conversations. It is the how. You have the what on pages 4 and 5. If the what is correct, then the administrative team and staff will continue to address the how. And we would anticipate updates to the board, and those updates can appear in the manner the board so desires. We would, at minimum, encourage the board to accept our update annually through the superintendent's annual update on the state of the district, if you will. Likewise, we would be bringing at least twice a year, if not quarterly, updates to the school board on where we are on each of these. So that is a framework. That's our 50,000-foot level. We're going to go down to about 20,000 foot for a while with Dr. Sanders and Dennis Cheeseborough. Good evening, and thank you for your time. Dennis?
Good evening, Board. With Mayor and Dr. Webb. And I think if you want to, I don't know if we're putting up if you want to take a look at the document that just says the partnership.
This one?
That one right there, with a little green and red on it. We thought it might be helpful for you to frame up how the document is laid out. You'll see on the left-hand side some of the key work and key documents of the board and its role in governance, and on the right-hand side the key work and role of the Office of the Superintendent Administration in filling that out. And I was going to go back and forth with this document to kind of explain how the pieces of this document fit. So if you look at page 4 and 5 is the strategic roadmap and the theory of action at the classroom level. And the strategic roadmap really is a document of governance developed in partnership with parents, staff, and community with regards to mission, core values, vision, and key district strategies. When you take a look at the mission, I'm then going to have you turn to page 7, where it says Mission Delivery Vision Card. So if you want to think about it in this way, the mission narrative on the roadmap in partnership with our communities, families and communities, District 308 will educate all students to reach their highest potential. And Dr. Wendt said, well, how do we know? Well, on page 7, the mission delivery point vision card is intended to give you the measures and the metrics. So when you look at vision on the right-hand side in the dark green column, those metrics are intended to be a definition of what it means to fulfill the mission. And your hope is that as you work towards this plan towards 2020, that the district will move towards level 4, level 5 performance. And you should be receiving monitoring reports going on that detail that at the district, the school, and the grade level. And also a comment was made earlier that you'd like data to go down into the classroom level. The mission delivery point is a primary vision card for teachers so that they, at their level, can track what's the performance of students in our school, our classroom, our grade, and individual students. Where are they? And so that is the highest level that begins to say, here's our mission statement. Well, here's our mission vision card. Then if you look on the key strategies A through D in the strategic roadmap, you'll find those vision cards on pages 8 through 13. And they are A1, A2, B, C, and D. So many times what you'll find is well, as I always describe as wonderfully written strategic plans with no performance management system behind them. This is a management tool that says the words on the strategic roadmap in narrative are backed up by numbers inside on the vision cards. And that's the performance management system. That if we, on these measures, we hit these targets, we believe we'll be implementing these strategies and achieving that mission. So that's why on the red and the green, those go together. So you have a mission statement and you have vision cards. Here's our strategic roadmap, vision cards. Here's how we intend to measure our performance. Then it's suggested that the district have a 3-year operational plan, which is on pages 15 and 16 of your packet, which are the key initiatives in each of those strategic directions to achieve the strategic roadmap. And the suggestion is that the board have a parallel 3-year board agenda. What is the work of the board in governance to support the work in the district operational plan of management? And what is the board work in policy, public engagement, in oversight, in superintendent relations that advances the work so that the path is cleared for this work to be done? So again, 2 parallel documents. And then you get underneath the operational plan, then you get into the more detailed department plans. And that's what's going to be reviewed. And on page 18 and all over, or 18 and beyond, you have a wonderful sample of the teaching and learning department taking the district plan and saying, all right, now we're going to drill down even farther. Here is the detailed work structure being organized to implement in teaching and learning what is on page 15 and 16 in a 3-year operational plan that lines up with the roadmap. So I was asked to do is kind of walk through how does the work of the board and administration partner up in its documentation, and for you to be clear that the vision cards is the performance management system under the roadmap. And that's the what and the what. And the operational plan and the department improvement plans are the how that need to match up with budget and investment. And so hopefully that is of use. Any questions? If not,
Thank you. So what the Teaching and Learning Department decided to take that next step then, once we had the 3-year strategic plan sort of laid out for us, is we focused in on those key district strategies. The 4 strategies on page 4, we decided to take those strategies, which will guide the work that we're doing till 2020, and drill it all the way down to what that will actually look like from the Teaching and Learning Department standpoint. So I know you've already had this document, so I'm not going to go over it in great detail with all of you. But I did want to at least kind of go into the differences in terminology that you will see that's considered learning work, implementation work, and standard of work. So for every single district strategy that we have, we needed to determine what we have in practice that's standard work. It's things that are already in place in our district. So I'm going to just kind of go through A with you briefly, but a standard of work that we have presently going on in our district is the math curriculum. That's a standard of work that's in place this year. We're already doing it. ELA curriculum review, that is being done currently. We are in process with the review process. As well as K through 5 common assessments using Mastery Connect, which you are aware of, as well as our new kindergarten screening. So those would be considered standard of work. Then we have implementation work, things that are being studied this year that hopefully we will be implementing and become standard of work hopefully within the next year or 2, and that would be ELA science curriculum, service learning in all secondary schools, and then the summer enrichment program. So then you have the learning work, things that need to be studied in order to know whether or not they would be chosen as relevant and world class for District 308. So some of the learning work that we're going to be doing based on the district goal, strategy A, would be District 308 approach to K through 12 blended and online learning. So in the middle column, you see that these are our district initiatives. But the Teaching and Learning Department then took that and said, okay, so in 1, if our learning work is District 308 approach to K through 12 blended and online learning, then on 1, over in the learning work on the far right-hand column, you will see action research projects that will need to take place in order for us to study online and blended learning approaches and platforms that we may be able to put into place. You can drill down into the second one, that's the science curriculum review. Definition of scope and sequence of our EC through 12 science program. You can go into the kindergarten delivery models and you will see things like investigate different kindergarten instructional frameworks. So there's a lot of learning and knowing that needs to take place in order for us to determine the appropriate actions that we will take. And with a strategic plan, one of the things that will be our next steps would be once the strategic plan is approved, and we say that these are our 4 district strategies that we are going to focus on, then we as a department and other departments in District 308 and all the way down into our schools, we will create documents that will bridge out our work from today until 2020 and how we will reach our ultimate goal.
And just orientation point, I think in the second page in your packet you have a graphic. Yep, strategic growth and change, and just an explanation. When we use the language of standard work, implementation work, and learning work, what do we mean? Standard work is what you believe is fit and relevant. So I can demonstrate that if you're willing just to raise your hand, just for a little fun for the board members, okay? Okay, this is just raise your hand. When you get up in the morning, hang on, I'll ask you a couple of questions. When you get up in the morning, how many of us do not use an alarm clock? Do not. Okay, keep them up. Okay, there are some that just don't, right? You don't need one, correct?
I need one, but I don't use one.
Okay. Okay, that would be a different question. Second question, how many people use an alarm clock? Keep your hands up. How many people use snooze? Keep your hand up. How many times?
At least 3 times.
2?
Not enough.
Not enough? You've all just declared your standard work. how I get up in the morning, fit and relevant, for one might be no alarm clock, another one might be with a alarm, another might be alarm plus 2 hits and a snooze, right? It's what we feel is fit and relevant. So a way of looking at this in your schools and in your departments, the standard work, what you do every day, if it's not fit and relevant to the mission, then you won't be at level 4 and 5 on the vision cards. You'll be at level 1, 2, or 3. If what you're doing isn't working for kids, then you're not going to be at level 4 and 5. So you have to change the standard work. You have to change what happens every day. And that's the purpose of strategic planning. So learning work is projects in which you're going to explore, research, beta test. You're going to try out and see if it works. And it gives you the opportunity to say no. Or all of our test and research shows it's the right thing to do, and that's what we should choose. We see that line on choice and the framework. That's what we choose to implement. And when we choose to implement, it means we are changing our standard work. So implementation then becomes the project to implement that change and change our standard work, which is why on the bottom you see what needs to leave. Because anytime you change your standard work, guess what? Something that you're doing today needs to leave. And the reason why change sometimes doesn't happen in organizations, we try to layer on project after project, but we don't kick out what is no longer relevant. The other thing I've always used is this example, and I had fun with the team this morning. How many people have a smartphone? Right? And I just say, how often do you check your phone? People are going, well, you check it all the time. What'd you do 5 and 10 years ago? People go, oh, I check it once an hour, I check it in the morning, check it afternoon. And my guess would be is that sometime over the last number of years, you've decided to let your old phones go. They had to leave the system in order for you to use new device, new technology. Same thing with teaching and learning, same thing with how our departments run. So when we talk about, when you see the word learning work and implementation work, those are initiatives to fundamentally change what goes on every day so that you can move your vision card performance. And I'm trying to demonstrate the linkage between the different elements, and that's the language that we were using both with the task force as we worked with them, and then with administrators and principals as we've worked with those in the developing of the 3-year operational plan and the department plans.
And one thing that we found very interesting as we went through the teaching and learning department and the strategies and the directions that the 4 stand out to us is that a lot of the, actually all of the board goals that we have been seeing and the board initiatives that we have been seeing are all interlaid within this strategic plan. So as you've seen, as you've gone through, a lot of the language that you've had in your board goals and the board initiatives are in the strategic plan and sort of the work that we will be doing. So it's just a different layering that Dr. Wendt has talked about before as well.
So the board has policies, as you well know, and Mr. Bellman, you and Ms. Paul are co-chairs on that committee, and you know that you have your policy, and then we have administrative regulations, procedures, protocols. So in this particular document, we would ask the board to give careful consideration to page 4 and 5. That is the section that we're going to provide to you tonight with the idea that if you haven't already done so, we'd like to hear back from you as individual board members. We want you to know that there are a few words on page 4 and 5 that are going to be tweaked or changed, adjusted. The concept, I believe, remains intact, but there are better ways to say what we're wanting to say, or there are words that need to be defined better, and that's what we're going to be working on. It's at the editor, if you will, level. We want you to feel good, as positive as we do. I have a lot of staff that have emailed me over the last several months, and they're anxious for this to occur. They're wishing the board well so that we can move forward with a new mission statement, new vision, our core values, and the goals placed in a plan so that our administrative team and leadership team can continue to outline by department, similar to what you saw tonight from the teaching and learning department, what it is that you pay us to do, and that is to work with others with an outline of how to obtain that goal. Likely the most popular one is ACT 24. I mean, I hear that now more and more as I travel internally and externally. Word is out. It was getting out. Now it's out, and people know that there's an expectation by the Board of Education to celebrate a composite 24 ACT at or before the year 2020. Having said that, it won't just happen. I regret that this wasn't in front of you a few months ago because, like I said earlier, we would be talking about online learning going to the state board. Well, we would have also, most likely, have said to you tonight, a few months ago, we were planning an evening, or not an evening, a late start at our high schools so that kids could learn and do a practice ACT assessment. Well, as you know, that occurred. And it's been a while since I've received as much positive communication from parents of high school children. It's been received well. I hope those of you that have high school students at the table felt that it was a good event. That's the example of the how. Trust me when I say there isn't an administrator or staff member in this district that doesn't understand that the board is serious about an ACT score increasing with a goal of 24 by 2020. The question is what are we going to do about it? And in our work session last Wednesday, I asked the question, and I'll continue to ask, what are we willing to do? Well, one of the answers was that we were willing to start school late and partner with a company to come in and help our students do what we felt like they needed to do. And that was to learn basic terminology here, what an ACT test looks like. And that has been a very positive thing. What else are we willing to do? All right, that's the how. That's that work back here. One could debate and argue for a long time that giving kids the opportunity to expand technology will attribute to better academics, consequently ACT score increasing. I think most everyone would agree that the curriculum review cycle that the board has approved, that ensures curriculum review on a 5-year basis, will help the end result, or the goal in this case, of a 24 ACT by 2020. That is the how. That's why we're doing the work. It's challenging. It's overwhelming. Some of it could be frustrating. It could lead to anxiety and a sense of overwhelming feelings from a lot of people, including parents. We have already heard what it's like to sit down with your son or daughter and not be able to help him or her in mathematics, when last year I could. It's because the mathematics curriculum was, my terminology, sat on, and what we were asking of one grade level this year, we were simply not asking of that grade level last year or the year before. And that's going to continue to happen, and that can lead to sometimes frustration. And so this is true that occurs in many districts. We're behind. And so I believe in having a good time and a sense of humor, and I like to lead with stories. And as I told the task force today, my wife and I receive, because we're Kansas City folks, we get these emails, text messages, most of them are appropriate, regarding the Kansas City Royals and their quest to win World Series. I was in high school. That was a big time in the Kansas City area, and when you grow up 45 minutes south of the city, and you're accustomed to being at the stadium, is a big deal. And to that end, we received an email this week that showed photographs of what it was like when the Kansas City Royals were last time they were in the World Series. And what did Dennis? You raised the cell phone earlier and asked the question, what were we using 5 or 6 or 7 years ago. May I ask anyone at the table if you recall, and if so, what did the cell phone look like that we're using in 1985? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Oh, come on. I know some of you are just as old as I am. Come on, Mike. You just said it. It was a bag phone. I told the group today, I said, that phone was big, and it was in that beautiful leather case. You right? And every once in a while, you had to get outside of your car and put the antenna up on top and talk out of it. And that's what we used. We showed photographs of what the computer looked like at that point. And when I went off to college a year later, I can remember how wonderful it was not to have to use the whiteout or that little roll of white tape. And the floppy disk was a great thing when you were an English major. And we went on and showed picture after picture. May I ask you a question? In 2020, what will the pictures look like? We get a lot of criticism. We get a lot of second guessing. But this is the type of a session where the board is rewarded. You've heard me say that probably the most honorable, enjoyable day for a school board is graduation. I stand by that. But close behind is the opportunity to set direction and vision and cause people to think. Greg, there was no way in the world when I was a high school principal in 1996, 1997, did we ever have one meeting around the idea that a kid could graduate from high school having earned his or her diploma, having taken up to 40% online. Didn't happen. Allie, when I was a principal, we never had one faculty meeting about dual credit. Not one. I mean, we should be very, very proud and pleased. I was on the phone with the senior vice president of the college board today, right? They're excited about District 308, outlining what we're doing with advanced placement. We're a leader in the state with the growth model and the number of courses, and to think that we'll be able to say that we think it's so important that we're paying for the assessment for kids. Those are conversations that did not happen under David Balow, not because it was right or wrong, but because they dreamed about character counts and all of the other facility structures. Imagine what they were dealing with at the time in 2005 and 6. Now we have an opportunity to dream. I think this is a big deal. I'm excited about it. It's great to be superintendent with a document that can come together. We've asked Keith Craven and Kevin Harris, come on up, guys, two of about 40 people on the committee that had the time tonight, or they at least took the time tonight, to come in and just share with the board. They've been with us since the beginning, over a year ago, and we've asked them just to come in, introduce themselves to the board, and from a parent or a citizen or both perspectives, just share the experience and what the document might mean to you. And we didn't write your script, did we? You did, I didn't get it. Yeah, there you go. So if you just use the microphone and share with us your experience. Good and bad.
I would say that it was a privilege to be on this committee, to see the different aspects of how the district
currently functions versus the way in which it could potentially function. It's been a really fun opportunity. I think that the interaction between individuals from the community, individuals from the school district, whether it be administration, teachers, or even people from the facilities and or bus driver, some from the buses and so forth. To see the way in which we worked, bouncing ideas off of each other, and being able to
just basically feel free to openly discuss what we think the way in things should be done and the way in which they could be done, I think was just a great process. And I think that you should be proud of the way in which this has turned out.
So my mother was a teacher, and my grandmother was a teacher, and I've got several folks in my family who have been teachers and administrators. So I've got a passion for students and what students can achieve. And I'm also a senior leader in a very large company, so I'm familiar with what it takes to build successful strategic plans and visions. I think we put those two together. I think you will find this committee was a very successful committee. I think the process was very inclusive. We had a diverse group of people with very different skills and backgrounds that came to the table, and they were all pretty open, frankly, with what they thought was going to be a good idea or a good direction or a bad direction. I think they brought very good challenge to the direction and process, and I think generated very good feedback, and you're seeing some of that now. I think the document that you have before you is a pretty profound document, and I've seen many strategic plans with visions and missions and strategies and goals and measures, etc. I think this was one of the best I've seen. Can it be better? Of course it can. But I thought this one was really well done. It's actionable. It's measurable. It's appropriately aggressive. But it's also going to require the district to make some decisions going forward around what work they will choose to do, and perhaps more importantly, what work you will choose not to do, or at least slow the pace, which is, I think, appropriate. That's why you have school boards with leaders like yourselves to make those kinds of decisions around what needs to be done to make this come to fruition. I think it's going to require some partnerships going forward, partnerships with parents, businesses, the community, student advocacy groups, and on, to make it successful. But again, I think good strategies and visions have those components in them, and you have the right talent, I think, to make those things happen. So I thought, as Keith mentioned, we had a very good task force. People were very open with what they believe we should and shouldn't do from very different kinds of perspectives. And again, as Keith mentioned, I think you should be very proud of this group. And going forward, I think you have a very good vision that you'll deliver in 2020. If not soon, if you put your hearts and minds towards it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Doyle, I don't want to embarrass you in there in the back row, but she's a member also of our task force, and I wanted to acknowledge you here with the board. I don't believe anyone else. We invited the task force to come if they so desired, but I think they felt pretty good about the speakers that we were going to have. Was there anyone else? I don't believe. And so my role board was extremely limited. I did not participate at the tables. I think this is a shared leadership where others are at the table making recommendations. And so, Mr. President, at this time, we've concluded our remarks. It's appropriate for the board to question any one of us as administration, Dennis, anyone who's on the team, and likewise provide some commentary about next steps and the direction we should go.
I just wanted to comment that just imagine where technology was the last time the Cubs were in the World Series.
Did we even have phones then, right?
I don't even think they had cars.
We should have sent that photo to me.
Yeah.
Poor Cubs fans.
In all seriousness, I want to, on behalf of the board, thank everybody's involvement, all our volunteers, all of the team members, all of the time and effort that I know is being understated here tonight with all of the effort that you put in. And thank you very much. And thank you for the summation of your feelings. I think that's very enlightening to the board as well from both of you, and it sounds like it represents the entire committee, so thank you again. I think looking at this work and moving to our next steps, it's incumbent upon the board to, I think the committee put the board in a tough spot because we're now going to have to make good decisions with respect to this plan and what we're going to support, and ask some tough questions on to Kevin's point, what can be slowed down, what needs to be sped up. This is a good position for the board to be in. This is where we want to be, and at the governance level, this is where we should and need to be, and not worry about the day-to-day operations. There's going to be benefits and negatives to each of our decisions, and for the board, as elected representatives, we're going to have to weigh those against the entire set of 18,000, almost 18,000 students, 2,000 employees, and how we're going to fund different initiatives and what initiatives can wait or what initiatives we don't fund. But we have to have a very diligent process in understanding that. We also have to understand from the committees as we work through the operational phase, not just the cost, but the resource investment in that. We have to push at an aggressive pace, but we can't be pushed too fast to burn out our entire staff. We've got a great staff here that is now very excited about what we have and where we're going, and we have to make sure we understand how to make those steps and make them successful all along the way. Tonight, that's kind of what I got out of it, initial thoughts of hearing from folks. I just want to open up to the board for questions or comments.
I think page 4 and 5 contain a lot of strong language. You know, there's some great statements that are going to demand that our administration and our staff, I think, are really going to be forced to step up their game. And if these core values and mission statements are something that we're going to put in on the walls in all of our buildings, we are going to be held up to those standards. So we really need to be ready to go through, like Bill and Kevin had stated. There's a pace that we're going to move at, but when a lot of community members and people read these statements, they're going to want to see results. So I hope that in the next 6 to 5 years, we're ready to back those statements up.
I'll ask a couple of our community members here, and thank you for taking the time to help with this. As I look at page 4, I think, in my mind, and I want to see if you guys agree or disagree here, I think the most difficult thing on this page is strategy D, and it's around communication. And I say this because I think it will actually be, I'm not going to say simple, I think it's going to be easy for the board and the administration to come to terms with what we can and can't do, what needs to wait, what needs to happen now. I always find that the hardest thing, whether it be in the public sector or the private sector, is to accurately communicate what's being done and why. It is easy for us to say our ACT goal is 24. It's hard to explain and to have everybody understand why that's important and how we're going to get there, right? So it's kind of a long-winded question, but I'm asking your opinions as members of the community here. How do you think the road for communication is bumpy, or do you think that as we start implementing other parts of this, that will naturally come along?
I think all 4 will be difficult to achieve without some focus. So I do agree that getting the community of thousands of people to agree and get aligned is actually quite difficult. Large organizations struggle with that, and it requires a commitment and an investment in the communications strategy that goes beyond each person having 5 or 10% of their time committed to it. You have to have people dedicated to making that happen. Otherwise, you won't be able to communicate it very well. And even then, it's actually quite difficult. So I agree that it's difficult, but it can be done if you choose to focus on it and invest in it. I think A, B, and C are equally difficult because they will also require some decisions from the board to choose to do some things. How will you staff it? How will you fund it? And what will you choose not to do so that you can do those things? If you have a strong leadership board that is willing to make those kinds of decisions, I think in 2020 you'll see results, frankly, that might exceed your expectations. If you do not, I think you'll see results that will put frankly, the district in a sea of sameness with the schools where you don't necessarily want to be. So I think all four are difficult, but all four are achievable, and all four require decisions of investment of time and energy as well as funds.
I guess I would say that anything that is of value to achieve takes time and effort, and it's going to be difficult. Yes, there's sometimes you're going to run into some little bumps in here and there. Those are things that you're going to need to learn from and guide you in the next decisions that you make. But I think if you look at these district strategies, they're valuable, and they mean something not only to me as a person that lives in this community, but I think they mean a lot to anybody that lives in this community. And while it may be difficult to do this, it's a worthwhile venture to take.
I'd like to comment on line 2, page 5. If we have and communicate high expectations for learning, life skills, and core values, to me that's the most powerful statement in the whole thing, because all too often we don't have high expectations for minorities, for disabled kids, for early language learners, and we should have high expectations because they're capable. We should have high expectations for our board, should have high expectations for our administration. They should have high expectations of their staff. The staff should have high expectations for our kids. And I think that's a cultural change that we have to make at the district level. We have high expectations of every single person and demand a lot from everybody. And I think that's just a powerful statement, and I think that will go a long way to achieving these goals, to have high expectations. It's that simple.
Can I comment on that? So I do agree. I think there is a need for high expectations. I don't think it's unique to certain federal groups, whether it's minority or disability or otherwise. I think the need for high expectation is fairly universal. And I think as a society we have sometimes missed the mark on having high expectations. If you look at what's going on in China today, you see what they mean. I've traveled there many times, and the Chinese are well intent on achieving a very powerful vision and have hugely high expectations of their people. And they're achieving that. I think if we as Americans do the same and set high expectations around education, around academics, around what does success look like, we will also do extremely well. So I think defining what that means is powerful. Keith mentioned to us today a story from me sharing about how he had a daughter who went into a classroom in the 5th grade, and the teacher had signs hanging from the ceiling of all the Ivy League schools and said, all of you in here can get there if you just choose to do the work and make it happen. That's setting high expectations, and it changed her view. So I think having that goes not just from talking about at the board level, but also in the classroom level. What does that really mean, and pushing that out through all forms of communication.
I would agree with you. I sat at a presentation that Mrs. Alexander gave over at Benarzik, and it was that one was parents, but I know that they've talked to the kids about MAP scores and how important they are, and what MAP scores equate out to a 24 once they get to high school and once they're taking ACT. And the kids, it's like the light bulb went on. So I mean, I think sometimes we don't do them justice, and setting the expectations high. We just kind of, whatever you can do, and I don't think that we should do that. I think we should set the bar a little bit higher, and I think they can get there, because now they're all charged about, well, here I've got to score this on the MAP test, and it's kind of like, she set the bar for them to get to where they need to be at whatever, 7th or 8th grade, 6th, 7th, 8th grade at the junior high level to get to 24 when they get here. So
I think it's been kind of a generational thing. And it's something to a point where we're going to have a higher expectation of our youth. One of the things I have a little bit about this entire page 5, why does it have to be a theory of action, not more of an expectation of action? Instead of an if-then sort of thing, why not an expectation of this is the way it should be? I just don't want it to come out that if we don't do one of these things, or if we fail at the end and don't have the expectations at the end, that we can use this as an out that, well, we must not have had this, or we must not have had that, so it didn't get this. I would like, I don't know, it just seems like I'm looking at the other way. I'm looking at the pessimistic way, I guess, but I want it to be more of a higher expectation thing.
Yes. Yes. And I'll just offer you this. The theory of action is that all of these elements are to be applied and to be present in each of the rooms, in each of the classrooms. So for the board, I just offer you an exercise in how you use this, how you begin to use this, is to have principals take a floor plan and go across every room and start with line number 1. So look at line number 1, take a look at a floor plan, and please indicate high, medium, or low. Then go to line number 2, high, medium, or low. And you end up with a portfolio of your building. And the question is, how do you and your staff, to the greatest degree possible, get to highs across all 8 statements in every classroom? And I think that's the translation of this from a theory of action to actually an expectation or a structure of action in every classroom. It always starts out with the theory of action language, but it's how you apply it that makes it real. And the hope is that in fact is a key, it is a key secret sauce, if you want to say, that was developed by administration about how best from the classroom up to actually develop some of these performance metrics. And I think if you have to look at that and say yes and do, your hope is that you'll be able to walk through and see high, 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 high in every classroom. And I think you'll see, and our experience is that when that does, you will see learning rise with very little difference. But I would offer, Dr. Wentz said the first one doesn't cost anything. The first one is the most influential. You can't do the others if you don't have the first, and believe me, this was one point that didn't take much discussion with administration. It was pretty universal. We don't get this in every classroom. The rest of it becomes theory.
Can I ask a couple of clarifying questions? 6th one down. If we provide both school-based and district-level instructional coaches, what was the thought there? Are we thinking ACT? Are we thinking reading specialists? What were we?
I think that related to the recognized need that having teachers receive professional development just in time, whether it's in the school or at the district level, because we have so many disciplines that we're aligning for curriculum. Having a math coach or math interventionist at this point to help along the way, to triage, that's been helpful. But we recognize that's just an initial step as we pull on ELA, as we pull on science. There have been conversations around the table about, well, what about a differentiation specialist or differentiation coach? Is that someone that we need to say, yes, that does make sense, and we're going to invest our time and pick the right person to have one at each building because we see that to be of value. So that's something that the committee talked a lot about. It was on the side of that curriculum assessment and then that professional development piece that was so important.
Okay. And then I was trying to figure out where the ACT fit into, or the dual credit. Or is that your collaborative partnerships? All right. And then go to page 7. Just for the good of the order. It says level 5 vision. I'm just looking at M1. Greater than 60% of the students are on a pathway to ACT 24 or higher. On a pathway to?
ACT is a graduate measure, and so Director Paul made the comment earlier about students getting excited about MAP scores, right? Well, the MAP scores are all linked up to the ACT 24 in a pathway, so that a child or a parent of a child in first, second, third, fourth grade can know through MAP, are they on pathway to an ACT 24? Many times what happens is that districts are either setting goals too low or waiting too late. And so you need to know what pathway, where children are at what level, literally at grades 1 through 5, if you really want them to have high levels of achievement in grades 10 through 12. And that is a new tool, and I think within this district, about the pathway mapping, and has been part of the process. And I think it's going to be one of your ways as a board, through reporting in this way, that you will know what percentage of kids in different groups and as a whole are on pathway grade by grade by grade.
So then I like that you guys made this 70%. So it was 40% and 30%. But so from this, is this where we decide what kind of reading interventions we're going to?
Most definitely.
Okay. And then flip the page. I'm looking at administrator satisfaction, parent satisfaction, staff satisfaction, but I missed a student satisfaction piece. A thought on that?
It's on A2.3 on page 9, right in the middle.
Just an overall student?
Yes.
But I think that
That's not well, that's an online, but that's online and community based. That's not an overall academic program.
So I think part of the time frame between now and in the next month is to allow you to say, have you thought about, which is what we used the group this morning for, the task force, to say, give us questions and give us feedback to advance. Have you thought about, and Dr. Wentz said we had 12 questions and 14 statements. There were 12 questions. The 14 statements were fairly challenging. Most of the 14 statements were, can you advance this or make this better?
And we didn't create this with the idea that we weren't speaking for the board. We didn't go into this and think, well, how would the board want this to be? That's where you now come in. Quality over speed. There's no rush at this point. We're not going to ask you until the board's ready to approve this. If it's in a few weeks, fine. If it's at the end of December, so be it. We want you to take the time and truly ask us the questions so we can get you the answers. And then two, is there something missing? Remember, you want this to be a living document. You don't want to have to turn around and explain it to people. Granted, there's going to be some of that, but to your point, if it's not strong enough language, then we need to put that in there. That's where I'm going to need your help.
All right, so page 9. I'm not done yet. Hang on.
Duly noted. Judy, we'll make sure we get that.
Page 9, you have 30% online learning, 20% summer enrichment. And I know there's been this big push with AP. You know I have a big push on dual credit. Thoughts about changing those percentages and including AP/dual credit?
Something for the board to think about because it's our plan.
And then flip the page.
Right.
For the good of the order, page 10, you have ILPs, B5.
Yes. We do. And that's an acronym that came up. We're going to probably we're going to look at a different acronym. IEP and the individual learning plan. Is that what we're talking? Is that the question?
I knew it as an IEP.
I was getting a look like maybe I was going down the wrong road. We're all aware of what the individual education plan is, the IEP. We have a philosophy at the district administrative level that every child in the district should have an individual learning plan. We have the technology that's out there. We're not using it. I've had conversations with Dr. Miner. We know that we're not going to launch in and jump in with almost 18,000 students, or 16,000 considering special education already has their IEP. But we could start with a group. We could start with we could start with what most states across this nation does, and start with the population of gifted and talented. I believe every child should have advocates sitting at a table at least annually discussing the direction of their education. Parent-teacher conferences don't cut it. I know we do it, but every year we talk about why we do it. It's 15 minutes of waiting in line to get very little information. It's time for the district to restructure and truly have a plan. Dr. Sparrow, do we have the technology on our phones yet that allow for principals to dial up a kid so that we can have access to their like parent, guardian phone numbers, etc.? Do we have that yet?
No, not yet,
Okay.
but we're working on it.
All right. I had that in my former district, and I know that we've been discussing it, so that at any time there's an emergency, we dial it up and we can get, in an emergency, in a true emergency, in a true emergency, to contact the parent. Our vision is to be able to use technology. If we can do that, and we can't do it here in 308 yet, but dial up their academic record. Dial up what we need, just like we do with the IEP meeting. I'm not asking us to judge what an IEP meeting looks like today. I'm asking us to think about what that looks like for every kid, to sit with advocates and discuss the next level. That's an individual learning plan, Ms. Swanson, but we're going to have to come up with a different acronym because it's been made, it's pointed out to us that that's going to get confusing. So should it be a student learning plan rather than individual? Something. But the concept is every kid in this district should have advocacy around a plan for his or her future. And I look forward to that opportunity. We've had great internal conversations. Thanks for asking. That was one issue, wouldn't you say, Dennis, that came up today?
Isn't there a counseling staff kind of, I mean, I'm just throwing this out there, isn't that kind of where they come in or should be coming in?
But how many kids?
Well, I'm just saying.
500, 600?
I think they could.
It's just they're overwhelmed to do
Well, it's their role is being.
Wait, hold on, I'm not
their
done.
guidance.
This
Page 12.
for the order.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Page 12. Retention of employees.
Yes, ma'am.
Can we add administrators? Just a thought. I like to train these administrators and keep them.
I'd like to see us probably look at adding just the word employees because people don't want, just training good paraprofessionals, for example, and support staff. I mean, it's becoming substitute teachers. I mean, if we're really going to truly go after this, we ought to think about it as employees.
All right, and then page 15. I'm almost done, I promise.
Oh, it's okay. It's good.
Page 15, I am looking at B, 2014-2015, and I am looking at learning work, and you described that as trying, and we have differentiation in there, and I believe we should put that under standard work. I know we have to get there.
Where are you?
B, under learning work, 2014-2015 school year, it says differentiation. Well, and it goes with cooperative learning, and you guys have a lot of acronyms in here, like SIOP and SEL, and
now we're going to clean that up.
Socially, I get it, but I teach.
Right?
What
the almanac.
Dr. Sanders, when the administration met, what we have, it may not be to the level that one or more board members would want, but we have that under learning work because of some PD that's taking place. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, and I think that the differentiation really comes into play because this is our first year of standard of work for our math curriculum as well as our math resources. So you usually want to put a curriculum in place and then determine how you need to enrich that curriculum as well as create some intervention strategies. So as we continue to roll out our new curriculums, that's when we need to really drill down into how we're going to differentiate then to reach that enrichment for those students who already understand the concepts, as well as how are we going to intervene for those students who don't. So as each curriculum rolls out, we're going to have to keep differentiation in that learning work based on the new curriculums that are coming.
And I get that.
Okay.
But my concern as someone who does teach for a living is that differentiation belongs in standard work every day in every classroom.
Can we have it in both? Yes.
We can get it in there.
Yep.
When I know that we need PD, I know that we need PD,
Right.
professional development, sorry. Now I'm throwing out acronyms. But I know that we need a lot of work on teaching teachers how to differentiate. But we have to do that sooner than later because that's part of their evaluation plan that's coming up too.
Exactly. And we could even probably, as we create the plan moving forward, is put differentiation for this subject area and then differentiation as a standard of work for some.
And I think you have to be, I think also the challenge there is to say, well, we should be doing differentiation, so it's standard work. Then I think the question goes to, because it's in the theory of action, okay, is it actually occurring in almost every classroom? If it's not standard work. It's not like just getting up in the morning. Therefore, it's still being implemented, and the challenge then is to move it out of implementation work and into standard work. But standard work is not a hope. Standard work is your everyday work.
Right, but we have it in learning right now.
Right, and
I want to study how to differentiate. I want to teach teachers how to differentiate in the classroom.
And what we're saying is, what's being said is, yes, your feedback is helping clarify. It might be in the wrong column. We'll get it in the right spot. But I also want to clarify that when something becomes standard work, this is what we do. And so if you haven't got it completely implemented, then you should keep it in implementation and force the issue. Why is it not in most every classroom?
Because that could also inform some other decisions that we make as we sit down with teachers and say, this might be required PD that we want you to do. And then that becomes a conversation when you have teacher groups for negotiation, so to speak. And some districts have taken that tactic. So, again, that which we monitor and value is that what...
But we have teachers asking for it too, right? Because the teachers I talk to have...
Asking for professional development.
On differentiation.
Differentiation.
Right. All right, my last one. Explain to me 21, career cruising.
Career cruise...
Page 21.
That's directly aligned with that college and career background piece for counselors. We were able to expand it from just the high school. Now we also have it at the junior high and high school. But if we're going to devise programs of study or inform students with their ILPs, that's going to be something that we really need to get into more. Our counselors have worked on the Ask a Ramp certification this year, and so I think we'll be hearing a lot more about how they will be implementing that more targeted at the junior high level in addition to just high school. So starting earlier to get the students college and career ready.
I think, Brent, when you asked your question about communication, kind of dawned on me that I think tonight is a pivotal point in the district's history going forward. And not to be melodramatic about it, but what we're doing with this document is resetting the expectations of the board and then communicating this to the community of all the 6 towns that we support. This is the new expectation through 2020, and at the governance level, at the board level, our focus is going to be on making sure the administration and the teachers and everybody else put together the plan. Our focus should be, I think, we own this. This is our responsibility more than it's the administrator's responsibility or the teacher's responsibility, because whatever they need is going to come back to us with the decision of if we can provide that. Is it something that can be provided now, later, etc.? And I think regardless of what we have people saying we shouldn't call the district this, it should be this. Well, this sets the expectation that change is on the horizon, and if we don't change, to Kevin's point, we'll just stay in a sea of mediocrity and sit here. We're saying that we're going to have to change. We're not going to look like we are today in 2020, and a lot of different things are going to happen. There's going to be a lot of professional development needs that are going to happen, and we're not going to like, as an individual, maybe the solution set to get there, but we're going to have to rely on the administration and the teams to tell us this is what we need to do to get there. And if you really don't want to get there, then we don't do this. Not that it's an open checkbook or that we don't get involved in decisions, because we're approving them at the end of the day. But the point is that what I'm trying to say is, at the governance level, we're going to have to make a decision, let the horses out of the barn, and let them run and go down the right path to get us to where we need. And with our oversight, kind of steer along the way and be responsible for holding them accountable. You mentioned accountability earlier. Our job is going to make sure that we let you go on this path, that we get there. That's kind of.
But can we also, before we talk about adding a lot more on, I like what you said earlier about we're also willing to take away. So
Absolutely.
You can't just pile more on teachers. You also have to be willing, and we have to be willing as a board to say, all right, I give, that's not working, let it go.
Right, or the internal resource, not money-wise, but just the internal resources. Is it too stressed at this time? Do we have to pull back on something and wait another year to implement?
No, I don't want to wait a year. I want to let it go. There's going to be things that we need to let go.
That I understand, but there'll be other things that we'll need to do, but it's just too stressed on resources, and so we have to push those off a year.
Kevin said today, made a very good statement about what we leave. Do you recall what you said today?
Yeah, so in our task force meeting today, we had a group of folks, I guess it was about 6 of us, and we were going through and challenging the plan and had some questions about it. And one of the members of my table raised the question up and said, we have to decide how we're going to make work leave the system. And that could be the more challenging aspect of what you're doing here. Beyond approving this plan, deciding what work's going to leave. And I found that in my organization that I work for, it's always the most difficult part, because for different reasons we struggle with letting stuff go or pacing it at a much slower level because the prioritization has changed and everyone has their projects and activities and areas of focus that they think are the most critical, and how you come to a decision that maybe it's not anymore.
We really appreciated that, and it supports what Mrs. Swanson is saying. And in districts that I've done this in, it's hard work to do what we're doing. It's harder work to find what we're going to leave, what's going to come off the list, and not delaying is a part of it, but literally we're not going to do this any longer. And quite frankly, off the cuff, so to speak, I did say to the group today that if it's not improving student achievement, we have no choice but to ask, why are we doing it? Whatever it is. And so I believe we stand ready. These will be some great times. I think I'm optimistic. This will be a very positive thing. This is good. And it's taken a lot of people to get us here. This doesn't happen by the superintendent and his staff sitting in a room. It doesn't happen. It would not be this good. This is a good document. I appreciate the comments about it being one of the best. And Dennis, you've seen these all around the country. And this is, Dennis and I have had some great conversations. We meet again tomorrow morning with our smaller administrative team to talk about next steps. But before we move on, I know that there are maybe other board members who have a question or comment. If not, we can move forward.
What's our time frame as far as any other suggestions and thoughts?
I'd like to touch base with you every 2 weeks here at the board table. So if you'd take the next 2 weeks and send me some information, then at that board meeting I can ask the question, did we respond? Where are we now? And if we're ready to move forward with approval, we would do that then at the end of November. If not, then we'll do it again at the end of November and we'll approve it in December. I would like to see us, I think it's acceptable to have the target of let's approve our governance piece of page 4 and 5 before the end of the calendar year. I think we ought to use at least a meeting in November or December so that we can do what we need to do to be ready to move forward in January with staff and all that needs to occur. And so a timeline, but hopefully not too aggressive for the board. Please shoot me your thoughts and comments and questions, and do what this page suggests. Hold me accountable.
That's sad, but I think this page, Dennis, I think this page is the key one for the board. The strategic direction
amen
page.
or heckled from the.
I think page 2 is one of our key governing pages as we go through our review. Come back to that. Thank you, Kevin and Keith, for coming in tonight. And thank you for everyone that's watching online that's been involved in this process. It's quite a daunting task, and I know the board appreciates that as well. We'll move on to 5.2, district communications via automated calling meeting. I received an email about this and wanted to add this topic to an agenda, so I will open the floor to Greg.
I'm not sure if some of the other board members are getting the numbers of calls that I'm getting, but it's quite a bit. And when I gave my number for the last, 10 or so years when I have my kids been in the district, I've never really gotten these calls. I've gotten emergency calls, school closures, bus reroutings, things a parent would want to know right away. The other stuff I'm getting, I really feel should be communicated to me in another way, like my email or some other way. Because my personal cell phone, I feel like I should have a right to privacy. I can block anybody who tries to solicit to me in any other way, but I can't block the school, otherwise I'm blocking emergency calls and can't find out if there's a real need or a message if my child is sick, or if there's an emergency at the school that I need to know about right away. I don't want that number blocked. So I really have no choice, and I'm not sure if other board members are experiencing that issue. And the other issue that I have is that I got 2 calls Monday, and neither one of them I could barely were almost inaudible, but you knew who it was. And the message played about halfway through the message, and then it abruptly stopped and went back to the beginning and repeated. And then I got a different message from another person, and the same thing happened. So I didn't even get the message. I just, it just doesn't even work. The system doesn't even work. So I find it a little bit annoying, and at times, when I see a call from the district, I want to take that call because you never know if this is the one where your child needs you for something. If there's a real problem, they're sick, once in a while I get a call from the school nurse, your kid has a headache or got hurt on the playground, can you come pick her up? And that's the call I want. That's the call I expect them to get me on the cell phone. So I want to make a big deal out of it. I don't know if other board members are experiencing the same thing. I've talked to a few who said they've barely gotten any calls, and so it's not a big deal. I have kids in 2 different buildings, and so I get calls from both, and sometimes they seem to rack up pretty good. So I would rather, if it was up to me, I would rather have a system where it's either easier for a person to opt out, or preferably you should opt in to a system where you want those kind of communications. I would think that would be a better system where at the beginning of the school year you check a box that I want all school communications to my cell phone or to my email, or you get to select how you would like to receive these messages.
You do get to select.
I don't know.
Yes.
I didn't get it.
I get them in English and Spanish, so I get twice the amount. So I get bombarded.
I didn't see it.
I don't remember ever getting an option of English or Spanish, just because what my kids chose for. I think maybe I don't know how I actually got that choice because I just. Because, no,
you shouldn't have to make a choice. You should. The choice should be I want in. It shouldn't be, well, if I don't check a box, then I'm just going to get this stuff. I think it should be just, if you want in, go ahead and check the box, and then you're in.
What topics are you getting calls on?
Food drives, fundraisers, parent-teacher conferences, kind of, because of the message, I only got half of it. But
They pick up.
So, I mean, we're filtering down from district to building to HSO.
I've gotten from at least 5 or 6 different people.
Why don't you go back to your building and ask your building to send them out as emails then? Because I don't get them from my elementary school. I don't get the robocalls from the elementary school.
I will refer you to Dr. O'Malley. I've made at least 10 phone calls to try to stop this. It's impossible. You can't do it. You have to. You can't. Dr. O'Malley, would you? I have spoken to you about it.
We took you off the list, so I don't think you'll be receiving
Really
phone
wants
calls
to
except
stop
in
calling.
emergency purposes. I think I've received more phone calls from you, Greg, than the auto robot.
20 phone calls to get that done.
Exactly. I've been called by you more often than auto robot.
You're old school, Greg.
So,
Well, I might be off, but I got calls as of last Monday, so we'll see.
no, I have a comment. So I think there's 2 different issues here. One, it's clear that Mr. O'Neill and other members of this board are probably not as familiar as maybe we should be with what is the process. So it would be nice if we just had a quick update on that. I think the bigger issue that you've brought up is that I'm not pointing fingers, but I'm guessing that there probably does not exist a district-wide administrative policy around where, when, and for what subjects robocalls will be issued. Okay, I'm guessing that's left up to each individual school, and it's probably been okay up until now. Maybe we're at the point where, as a board, we want to say we'd like to review that AP, or we'd like to request the administration to write an AP and have some input, or send it through the policy committee.
Right, but
Maybe that's the next step.
We're saying we're frustrated because we're not getting enough communications. So some schools are communicating and some schools are not communicating. And some people want to get market day phone calls because they're a little bit younger than we are.
That's fine. They're welcome to get them. You should
they
have
don't
a
wanna
way to
check
get
your
that. If
email.
that's
I'm-
the way
yeah,
you
I
want to
can
be
be-
communicated with,
I can be
you should
email.
have that option. You should also have the option to
Opt out.
not get it.
But
You
again,
don't have that.
I'm guessing that because the buildings are making this decision, I'm not saying. What I'm saying is I would. It's probably not currently possible for us to create lists, literally for each individual, that says I do want home and school messages, I do want PTO, I don't want fundraising or anything with the word 5K in it. I'm just being silly about it, but it's either the building decides the message goes out, or the building decides the message doesn't go out. There aren't layers of opt-in of categories.
Right,
say,
but as a
emergency
parent
or
of a building who rarely got communicated with, and now this year for the first time, I think Alan's in high school now. For the first time in 9 years, I have a school who's actually sending home messages that's communicating, which is like kind of a big deal in our house. Like, oh, hey, there's something going on
Email,
at
you
school
can
today. We better
communicate with me all
go.
day long on that. I don't have a problem.
Well, no, they're calling the house phone. They're not calling my cell phone, which is a little bit different than what you got. I clicked the right box.
Yeah, if I did that, but the problem is that I want the emergency calls to come to my cell phone because that's what I have.
So
on
here's
me.
here's the question to.
Emergency calls come to my cell
So here's the question to the board. If you can, in this issue, write down your wants and needs of a system, we'll collect those, send them out to the other board. If you guys agree, we will then ask the administration to investigate, on top of everything else they do, how much it will cost to buy a system that will meet our needs. Because we're defining it, to your point, Brent, what the board wants.
Wait. With the new website that's going to be coming online very shortly, they're going to have the ability to opt in for teacher communications, sporting communications, whatever communications, and it's all going to be via email. So I would hope that would cut down on the amount of robocalls that are going to happen.
Oh, that's
Everybody
good.
has email.
Well, not everybody has email, you're right. Not everybody has a home phone. Not everybody has a cell phone. So, I mean, we're going to do our best to communicate with them in whatever manner, but when this website comes online, I think it will be huge in communicating and parents opting in with what they want to know about what, whether it's a teacher, a building, a sporting activity, whatever. You can check all those options, and you can get every time the website is updated with one of those things, you can get communicated with, which is important.
Please clarify for your superintendent, is there anyone that's receiving inappropriate calls from the district?
No.
This is a building issue. District doesn't put out fundraising. Well, this is a building issue, and here is the issue. You are correct. I have not written any policy that informs a principal that because you're a principal in 308, this is when you must contact your parents and this is when you don't. That is all at the building level. We happen to be surveying people over the last 2 years, and moms and dads have indicated in a high number that communication from their school was ranked in the top 5. Everything is typically in the eye of the beholder. If fundraising was an unintended or negative or adverse communication, the point is, I'm glad to hear you say what you said, because our plan is working. We want more communication. The system that we currently have is called
Blackboard Connect 5.
Blackboard. Blackboard allows us to contact parents. It does not allow us to have people choose between emergency or what would be defined as emergency and everything else. Are there systems that will do that? Yes. That's where we break into 2 categories. One is, Paul, you are correct. Email and the website will do that. However, if it continues to be a desire to communicate via phone, that must be a different system. It's a $60,000 investment. That's what it comes down to. So if the district wants phone calls, then this is what we do. We don't have a system. The system has been in the district for some time. It doesn't allow us to do what even other districts do. We've researched it. We've explored it. We're under contract through June 30th of 15. And so we do have time to think about and talk about. Remember, policy committee would not get into administrative procedures, but I want to answer your question. I have not dictated down to the principals when they contact their parents. If that's something that we would want to do, I would want to talk about that, because it's different by elementary to high school. I think these are professional folks. They ought to be able to determine when they call. If it's about fundraising, or there's a particular topic, then at least let me know, and I can talk to our principals, and maybe there's a better way or a different way to do that.
Well, you got to remember that we're all pushing 29, but there's, in the elementary, young 20-year-old, maybe not 21, they're young parents who have a much different take on technology than we do that's sitting up here.
Well, is DAC getting inundated with complaints about phone calls? No.
But
we're just old and cranky.
I mean, I honestly, there's a lot of stuff going on. Bill says a date during a meeting, and I got to look at the calendar, and I got to put it on, or I'm going to forget. And I, for one, like the phone call a day or 2 days before that says, hey, Hunk Club parents, don't forget we got this. Oh, crap, yeah, thanks for the call. And there are times when I ask my wife, did you get a call? And she'd say, no, I didn't get a call. I would like transportation to call 5 minutes, 10 minutes before they do when a bus is late, because then I got time to get everyone dressed and go drop the kid off at school if I have to. So, I mean, it's one of those things, Bill's going to like a couple of things, you're going to like a couple of things, I'm going to hate a couple of things she is, and is this something we really need to spend this much time and resources and money on right now? I mean, it sounds like you need to do some maybe fist stomping at the school level, the HSO level.
Change your phone number. Change the phone. No. Change the phone number where it's going to, because it doesn't come to my cell. It goes to my house. So you can dictate which phone you want it to ring through.
Then if there's an emergency, I'm not going to get the call if I'm not home.
That's not true. That the nurse will find you wherever you're at. All you do is you put down where your first number to call is. every number.
If there's an emergency, we just call everybody.
My
And
phone,
so
3 different phones ring when
We'll find you. We'll find you.
they call off school.
Amazing, we can find you. Well, give this some thought, and if there's something there, but I want to be sure to answer Mr. Lightfoot's questions, and let the board know that's our system that's currently in place.
Okay, then we can have a motion to go into closed session.
I make a motion to enter closed session under Statute 5 ILCS 120/2C1, the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee of a public body or legal counsel for a public body, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee of a public body or against legal counsel for a public body to determine its validity.
Second.
Look at Mr.
Lucky
Bauman,
Karen was right on top of that one.
Aye.
Mr. Lightfoot,
Aye.
Mr. McDowell,
Aye.
Mr. O'Neill, Mrs. Paul,
Aye.
Swanson, Mr. Walsh.
Aye, motion carries 7-0. We're in closed session.